Hello and welcome to the hashtag Here to Hear Keeping It 100 podcast. My name is Damon Naylor and I'll be serving as the host. I am the NAFCM media guru and I'm joined by my co-host, DG Mon, the president of NAFCM. Hello, DG.
Hello, Damon. How are you?
I am great, can't complain. Just so happy to be alive, man. That is it. That is it.
Sometimes
So,
that's the best thing we can have, right, sir?
right. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Well, everybody, today we have a dynamic guest with us, none other than Mary Lee Brock out of Omaha, Nebraska. Mary Lee is an assistant professor of negotiation and conflict resolution in the Department of Interdisciplinary Studies at Creighton University. She is also the founding executive director of Concord Mediation Center, a community mediation and facilitation nonprofit serving the Omaha metro area. Without further ado, we're going to bring her in to hang out with us. So let's welcome her in.
There's the doorbell. Let's open the door. Bring her in.
Well, hello, Mary.
Hello. Hello. It's good to be here.
So glad to have you, Mary Lee. We've done a formal introduction for you, but we want to give you a chance if you want to share some personal background information with the audience.
Okay. Well, I'll keep it brief because I know our time is limited. I want to respect everybody's time. First of all, I'm just such a fan of the work of NAFCM and community mediation and the nonprofit sector in general. And I'd urge anybody, if they want to have a follow-up to anything we touch on in this podcast, to please reach out to me at maryleebrock@creighton.edu. Sometimes a great conversation like this will stir up more questions than it answers. And that's what we're all about. So really appreciate that opportunity to connect and just really honored to be here.
Awesome, awesome. So we're so grateful to have you and just excited. We've been excited about this interview. And we just want to really talk about your journey in the world of mediation. And so we know that you were the founding director of Concord Mediation Center. And so we wanted to ask first off, when forming a community mediation center and creating programs, why is relationship building so critical?
You know, that is a great way to start because it's all about the relationships. And so when I came to the idea of forming Concord Center, I was really standing on the shoulders of so many people that had done that work. So right there, that mentoring relationship is so important. And so I formed a board and articles of incorporation and had a spreadsheet. If I would be paid, this is what I would earn, you know, those kinds of things. But I would say early on, I felt so energized and so much responsibility, and I wasn't necessarily tending to or inviting the relationships in. I wanted to have things a little more pulled together first. And I learned happily, gracefully, that just forming those relationships and tapping into different passions and talents and perspectives and detractors. Those relationships were so important to making the center stronger because it's really about meeting our clients and our community where they are. And if we can't do that, then there's no purpose. So I went on a lot of, I called them, probably not politically correct, professional blind dates. I was always going to coffee shops and wandering around till I connected with the right person, put myself in spaces that sometimes felt like it was talking to like-minded people and sometimes talking to people that were threatened by what we were trying to do with mediation or feeling that these kinds of questions only belong in front of the courts. So just having that diversity of relationships makes it a big difference. And then I'm going to add to that because also when I was starting, I was just like overwhelmed and excited about all the people that could use our services, from resolving family issues, small business issues, learning skills. And so I was originally thinking about building relationships with the potential client. And to me, a turning point was building the relationships with the referral sources. Who in the community are working in those spaces that are encountering people that might really be served by what we're trying to do? that might really have an opportunity to meet young dads that want to get more involved with their kids, or meet nonprofit agencies that are merging or trying to build, or business entities, connect with the schools. So those relationships, not in a transactional way, but in a we're in this together way, makes such a difference.
Okay, okay. So I know you mentioned about the professional blind dates, basically. I like that concept. Are there any other actionable steps an individual or organization can take in that process of building those relationships? Any, strategies there with it?
Sure. I guess I would say when I reflect back on the early days of Concord Center, I had kind of three major forms of relationships. One was, as we just talked about, the potential referral sources, or people that would be cheerleaders, people that would, really support what we're trying to do, and also listen carefully, again, as I said, to the detractors. I think I incorporated it as a nonprofit, and that board of directors was essential in relationship. And I worked very hard to be really mindful about the roles that the board members would play. Would we have a variety of skills, a variety of experiences? We wanted diversity on all kinds of levels, from socioeconomic to work style, to lived experience, to understanding of the field. And then how do we build on those different roles and kind of bring a richness for us? And then for our center in the early days, those initially volunteers, and eventually we got to the place where some could be contractors, doing that formation of professionals and giving people an opportunity. They were called some reason to want to do mediation. They got the bug. And how do we create meaningful opportunities for them, but not to create the opportunity just for the mediator, but really help them figure out who needs this service, who needs to sit down and have that conversation, and how do we foster that relationship. And with all of those groups, I had to fire some people from those relationships. It's really hard to have a graceful farewell to a volunteer or a board member or even a community agency, but that's our work. And if we're not willing to have a difficult conversation, then we can't be as strong and can't reach the potential. So I still in the community see people, and we kind of joke about how it was the right idea, maybe the wrong time, it wasn't the right fit, and we were able to kind of change the relationship gracefully.
Right, which is a good thing, having that flexibility to be able to do that.
Correct.
Just from your energy, and you seem so passionate about community mediation and this work. I just have a curious question: is how did you get involved? What led you to it? What directed you to this path?
This is a dream come true question. Here we go. In my work, I worked out of graduate school. I have a master's in counseling. So my professional perspective is more in the counseling perspective. I worked in college student affairs, like student housing, and in arts management. I kind of would toggle between those two jobs. And to me, it just like a roommate conflict seemed like, well, that's not that hard to work on. And I would see my colleagues kind of shrink away from it and, run the other way. And so I just was comfortable with kind of sitting with people in their pain and helping them figure out a new future. So I was seeing my friends get called to these amazing vocations. And I thought, I keep just bouncing around to these really interesting jobs. When am I going to get called? And so I'm a graduate, not only working at Creighton University now, but I am a graduate of Creighton and connected with them when I moved back to Omaha. So I went to the career office. And I thought I'd get some action verbs for my resume, be reminded about some interview tips. And the director at the time, he's our people. He's like, you'll get a job, but what are your passions? And it stopped me short. I'm like, passions, I have two young girls. I'm 40 years old, not really sure last time I showered. And you're asking me about what am I interested in? But it was one of those seminal moments. What a great question. And we can all look at times in our personal and professional lives where we've been invited to have these kinds of decisions. And I thought, what do I want to do? And so then I just started connecting with my network, family, friends, local judges, professors, community people, and just kind of found my way toward mediation. I learned in that process, don't quit your day job, and I already had. So I had to like figure out something else. But it was, but that space helped me create that space to invite other people in to form the center.
Awesome. Well, that's a great story. And I know it'll really resonate with a lot of our viewers there. Okay. At this time, I'm going to pitch it to DG to see if he has any questions he wants to ask.
Thank you, Mary. Just a few for those listening and thinking about perhaps becoming a true community mediation center. What tell us about your resolve to go on blind dates over and over again, as you referred to it, can be really scary. It can be tiresome.
Yes.
What was your strategy? Who did you intentionally say, this is who I'm gonna blind date?
Right. I ended up, I didn't know it at the time, but I ended up using like a community organizing model. So if you think you put the whole community on a bell curve, and I'd kind of just try it out. And if people were into it, boy, then I would continue to work. But our intuition tells us we should try to win over the people that are absolutely opposed, and it doesn't work. It just takes so much energy. So I just followed the energy and just kind of tried, really listened to people's advice about who I should meet. And in our field, it can be kind of tough to do some networking, because I would go to, let's say, an Omaha Chamber of Commerce meeting, and people would be so pleasant, like, wow, mediation, great. Hope I never see you again. I'm like, I don't think that's how networking is supposed to work.
Well, you did it. You did a great job. Your center is strong and vibrant.
Yeah.
What inspired you to name it Concord?
Well, I knew nothing of forming a mediation center or doing anything. And in fairness, Nebraska, I was set up for success because Nebraska had adopted the Nebraska Mediation Act. And so it had a structure with a little bit of funding would come out of that judicial branch to help nonprofit centers. So I was able to tap into that. Another center had tried it and was more aligned with an advocacy group. Anyway, so we thought, okay, let's start afresh. A couple people had some mediation experience. We sat around my dining room table. This is so exciting. We're so entrepreneurial. And we named it as the Community Mediation Center. So learned very quickly that wasn't the best name. It's kind of Birkenstocky. It's kind of long. And mediation is oftentimes not understood or is stigmatized. And I think I was able to hear that from a counseling background. If we think about where we are now, where it's celebrated to go to therapy and to seek new insights into your world. Boy, when counseling was starting to get professionalized, that wasn't necessarily the case. And that we were finding that a little bit with mediation, and then, or was that medication? Is that meditation? And so one of my board members suggested Concord Center. And I didn't know what grapes or jets had to do with the field at all. But I thought it sounds cool. It sounds like a mysterious, fancy firm, and that would work. And I liked that it would be an umbrella that we could do other things like family group conferencing, restorative justice, workshops, trainings. And then he very gracefully helped me see some synonyms to Concord of treaty, harmony, agreement, accord. And I thought if he had said Discord Center, I would have known just what he was talking about. I hear even in the field, I had that same bias that we kind of can more easily go to the negative side of things. So changing the name just kind of really opened up some possibilities. And after I left as the director, the board and the director at the time put mediation back in, because by then the Omaha community had a better vocabulary for it.
But well, I think it is a wonderful name because it gets people to ask you what is that,
Yeah,
which is
right.
always a good opening
Yes.
to have with the center. And some of the things you described we could also do is exactly what our community mediation centers do now. The restorative circles, we have more than
Yes.
60% of our centers do that.
Yes.
10% of our centers don't do any mediation at all. They do the facilitation, the circle work, the coaching. So it's
Yeah,
fascinating that you named it so it could grow into things
correct.
larger than mediation. What you allowed it intuitively grow into is what community mediation really
That's
is, because we are a
really,
verb, not a nominalization. So I love
yeah.
it.
Yeah, and it just it is. It's just to see the possibilities, and it just feels like it aligns so much with our work. You and your listeners may very well know Bernie Mayer's work, and I had the opportunity to work with him at Creighton University before he became professor emeritus. Lucky guy. But Bernie really invited us to think about moving from that notion of conflict resolution to conflict engagement. Because as we know from our work, there's so much conflict that can't be resolved, but that doesn't mean it's a failure. Again, opening up the possibilities, and it seems counterintuitive, but the more we can broaden the scope, I think the better.
Absolutely. It's the poco and poco.
Yeah,
Every little conflict that gets addressed allows you to move on to the one that's deeper and even more important.
that's
So it's
right.
a wonderful process.
Yes.
And I'm going to turn it back over to Damon. Damon, thank you so much for letting me ask these questions. I've been
Yeah.
wanting to know how it got its name since forever.
I love that
So
I
I
can
was
tell a
so
story
looking
on
forward to
myself
this
too, because it's like,
conversation.
wow, clueless and happy with it.
Well, yeah. Well, thank you, Barry, for giving us the story, the background on it, and very interesting. I like how you said with the name, you made it broad so that you guys can do so much
Yeah,
and it's not limited.
right.
So my next question is, how does a community mediation center develop programs that both support the mission and generate funding?
Right. That early on in my days as founding executive director, the Omaha Community Foundation sponsored a capacity building workshops, and I went to a workshop on social entrepreneurship, and it was pivotal. So we used a money mission matrix to make every decision at the center. So you kind of just lay it out into a grid. If a program or a potential program fits the mission and it's going to bring in money, we're definitely doing it. If it fits the mission but doesn't make money, we might do it as long as it's not costing us money. If it brings in money but doesn't fit our mission, sorry, we're walking away from that money. And if no mission, no money for sure. And it really helped us make good decisions and to try to look at strategically, how can we, because we have a responsibility to stay solvent so we can continue to serve. And I did hear that sometimes with board members, some of them were got a little queasy if we had some money in the bank. And I'm like, that's how we stay sustainable. But I would try to look at contracts over individual pay, get on a retainer, those kinds of things to kind of think. And it also helped, like, people had a passion for like a volunteer small claims court project, and that was going to cost us money. So it gave me a comfortable way to say that is good and important work, and that is good and important work we can't afford to do right now. And it really helped.
I love it. Mission and money. M&M,
Yeah.
right?
It's like, get it in there. Like,
Right.
and I loved having a financial audit every year because it
Yes,
taught me
yes,
good policies and procedures. So
yes.
it's important to have that passion for the programming and for the mission, for the work. We had mission, vision, values that we would share. We had it available at every staff meeting, every volunteer meeting with our board members to kind of keep us anchored, because there's so much need. And I mean, think about where we are today. It's overwhelming, the need. And so can kind of get caught up in that. And the more we could just keep it really like, how can we move the needle here today?
Right, right. But what I love about it, it is really helpful for entrepreneurs and business owners as well, that concept. you know,
Yep.
making sure the mission and the money align,
That's right.
and that if it's
Yeah.
not with both, hey, you know, let's not do
That's
it.
right.
But yeah,
Maybe that's why I like to watch Shark Tank. I never thought,
right.
like, how would I do on
Yeah.
Shark Tank with my center?
Right. Definitely. And one last thing, just as a segue, because you kind of just touched on it, as far as communicating vision, mission, and values, as far as doing it internally and externally, have you ever encountered barriers, or what barriers have you encountered with that process, trying to communicate those things effectively?
Yeah, it's really hard work. And you get just what we should do. Diversity of viewpoints and passions and ideas. And then now, wait, I'm going to pull them all together in a room, and we're going to just immediately agree on our mission values and our core values and our mission statement. So we spent a lot of process time, and we would bring in somebody else who had the skills, a skilled facilitator, to guide us through that. And then we kept it as a living document, not that it was like set in stone, but it was our touchstone. Again, does this program, does this potential volunteer, does this potential board member, does this potential community partner, do they fit our values? Are they sharing our vision? Is this something that is committed to, being part of a learning organization? So I do think that communication. In fact, I was just going through my office, and I found an older version, which there are many, of Getting to Yes, which we had given to a gift as board members. And inside we taped a placard about our mission statement, our vision statement, and the core values that guide our work on a daily basis. And it ended up being really energizing for people.
Okay, awesome. And what I love about what's central to me about most of the things you talked about and the things that you do is that you have just the open mind for the growth, the change, and the evolution. You know, it's not just limiting it for this, but just being flexible and open that we can change, we can grow, we can go this way, and that you invite the diversity and the differences.
Yeah. There are times I had a few bruises here and there, but it is important to listen to that.
Yes.
Abraham Lincoln had his team of rivals, and it makes us stronger. It doesn't make it easier to do, but
Yes,
it's so important in the end. And just to always ask ourselves, who are we not hearing from? Who's not at the table? And that's hard to do when we have such a mantle of responsibility. We're not getting to what we wish we could or what we see could happen. We're just kind of keeping along. So to have that perspective can make a huge difference.
Awesome. Well, Mary Lee, you have been wonderful. And as always, this time passes by so fast.
I can't believe it.
Yes. DG, did you have anything you wanted to share with Mary Lee or the listeners before we leave?
Thank you. It's always so great talking to those individuals that said, why not? Let's start one, let's figure it out. Our community needs a community mediation center. And there are so many places in the country that absolutely need Mary Lee Brocks who say, why not? We can have one here. So I want to thank you for being such a leader and being someone who said, why not?
Oh, I really appreciate that. And I mean, as we started, I could never have done it alone, but I am so glad I said, let's do it. And I mean, the ripple, the joy, it just comes back in so many different ways. So thanks for the chance to tell my story. This is really a real honor.
Right. The pleasure was ours as well. And we truly thank you for keeping it 100. We appreciate you once again for being our guest. And we look forward to chatting with you again. And we just wish you the best in all of your endeavors. So thanks again.
Okay, thanks so much.
Right.